Well, welcome back. Today I got a 2016 Kia Sorento. Needs front brakes. Pretty common maintenance thing, so we're just going to go through and do the front brakes on this and show you how to do this. 21mm. We're going to come in here, loosen the two bolts that hold the caliper bracket on the steering knuckle. They're 17mm. The slide bolts for the caliper are 14. We're going to break them loose first. It's always a good idea to do them first before you actually break it loose from the steering knuckle. Just makes it easier. $14mm, I said. Pull the caliper off of this, hang it up. Bungee cord or a wire clip, doesn't matter. Whatever you have to hang it up, piece of wire, they all work. Okay, pull these little metal wire clips out. Just slide the pads out of here. Should be able to. This particular car, the indicator goes on the inside pad. Now we can take the bolts that hold the caliper bracket, mounting bracket onto the steering knuckle. We'll break them loose. 17mm, as I said before. Try to get accurate, but break away. Just break them loose, and then we'll just zip them off. Okay. Helps to have a stubby impact for these. A little easier to get in there and a wobble socket. Just makes it a lot easier to get at them. Just a little lock washer there. Put that back on. Bottom one. Come on. Okay. Set that aside. This particular car has screws that hold the rotor onto the hub. I usually take this as a bigger Phillips head. If you don't have an impact driver manual, I just put some pressure on it. I usually can drive them loose like that. Just turn it in the direction you want it to go. So put pressure on it, so I'm turning it to loosen it as I hit it. I usually will snap. And this car's doesn't have corrosion really, so they came out pretty easy. Sometimes they can be really difficult. They don't really serve any purpose except to hold the rotor onto the face of the hub while you're working on it. That's all they really do. So this is stuck on there. So we're gonna here. And one of the things you notice on this hub has a raised edge around the outside edge and a raised edge on the inside. So you can see it doesn't sit on the middle of the face of this hub. It sits around the outside and right around the inside. It's kind of nice, and you couldn't see that, but there's nothing that sits on the middle of this face of this rotor. It's just on the very outside edge and the inside edge around the hole, around the hub. That's kind of nice because these have a tendency to corrode when they sit flat, and then they're hard to get off sometimes. These actually come off pretty easy. We're going to just go and clean it up, and you can see these It's not very dirty at all. There's not much corrosion in there. We'll clean that up and we'll grease it. I actually greased the face, the inside face of the new rotor that sits against that. Do that before we stick it on there to keep the corrosion out of there. We're also going to come back to this, and it's not really corroded at all, but we'll just clean it up with a little Scotch spray on the two tabs that ride on the back of the outside pad and the face of the piston, which rides on the inside pad. You want to clean them, make sure there's no corrosion, and then we're going to grease them with high temperature brake grease. We want to make sure that we try to keep the corrosion out of there. We'll just go around. Like I said, this hub's really clean actually. There's very little corrosion. We'll just clean it up a little bit. And what I do want to get around is the tendency for most rotors is to seize around, right around where it meets the hub, that corner, the face of the flange, the corner of that flange where it comes out through the rotor. That tends to be where it will get stuck. So we're going to clean that good, and then we'll grease that. Try to keep the corrosion out of there. Clean off the caliper itself. Like I said, if this was worse, you could take a cookie wheel or sandpaper. This is really clean, so I'm just using a piece of Scotch Brite, because just cleaning it up a little bit before I re-grease it. Not much to it. And of course, chemical of 1001 uses, brake clean. Clean that off. Just a little bit of grease, not real heavy. Thin coating right around this hub. Keep the moisture out of there. Like I said, I already greased the inside of the rotor. I'll show you that before I put it on. It's just a little easier. I'll put a little more on here. Don't need much, just need a thin coat. And also grease. Actually, I'm going to push this pad back in. You have to push this piston, push it back in so we can get the pads in there. Newer pads are thicker, so you need more clearance to get around the rotor. So we're going to push this back in. So we'll just do that. Try to get it close here so I don't spend half an hour doing it. There we go. These should push in pretty easily. If they don't, you need to check your caliper, see if there's a problem with the caliper or possibly a clog in this line. But these are going in really easy. This car's just the first set of brake change, first set of new brakes that this car's had, so it's a pretty new car, a little over a year old. We'll just push that in, bottoms out. It's ready to go. Now we can go in there and grease it. I actually like to use Sorento. That sounded good. Didn't it? So I actually like to use the same thing I use for caliper mounting bracket when I do the hardware, which is Permatex Ceramic Extreme high temperature grease. We'll grease the tabs where they ride against the back of the pad, and grease the edge of the piston where it rides against the back of the inner pad. Keep the moisture out of there. Keep it from corroding. Try to keep my hand out of the way, but I know it's in the way. That's it for that. So I'm going to put the new rotor on here, put it back in place, and we'll go work on the caliper mounting bracket. So here's the new rotor. You see I've greased the inside of that face on the inner face where it sits against that hub. This has, like I said, 2 screws. You saw me take them off. So make sure you line them up with the holes in the face of the hub. So you put the screws back in. Otherwise you'll get to do it twice. Some good light here. Hopefully it's good light. I think it is. Okay, we're going to go over. We're going to take this. Check the boots. Make sure the rubber boots are not cracked or dry rotted. These are pretty new, and you can see they're moving very well. You can see that they move in and out really well. But we're gonna pull these out of here. And the grease is pretty good, but we'll re-grease them before we put them back together. And what we want to do is this hardware that's on here, right there. We're gonna pull this hardware. We have new hardware. Always get new hardware when you do your pads. That's what your end of your pads slide in and out on. So if that gets dirty or corroded, and what tends to happen is corrosion gets behind it and pushes up on that piece of hardware and kind of binds the pad, and then it can't move freely. So we always replace this hardware. It's a couple dollars. Replace it. Good pad sets usually come with it. We'll take these over. These are not really corroded at all. We're just going to take them to the wire wheel. We'll clean them up. We'll re-grease with the same ceramic extreme. You can use Sil Glide brake grease, high temp grease. Got to be high temp grease. That's the big thing. We're going to grease behind that hardware, put the new hardware in place. Well, all that grease does is help displace the moisture and keep moisture from getting in there and creating corrosion and pushing the pads around. So we're going to go over and do that. I will wear glasses for this too. Doing stuff like this on a wire wheel, wear glasses, protect your eyes. So what you have to be careful of here is you don't want to hit, if you're doing this on a wire wheel, you don't want to hit these rubber bushings. It'll just tear them up. So, and then you'll end up replacing them. So we're gonna clean this up. Well, you can't see that. Here you can see we've gone in behind and cleaned all the, there wasn't much on this, it's pretty clean. But we got all that cleaned out with the wire wheel. We're going to pull the slides out of this and re-grease them. Grease here. Pull out, slides right out of there. Clean it up. Like I said, you can use, I like this, but you can use Sil Glide for this as well. It works also. Can't use regular grease. One, you have to use something that's not going to damage the boots, the rubber boots. on this, and 2, it has to be high temp. These get pretty hot, so to have something that's going to be able to take the heat. We'll just work that in there, right into that. Slide our pin back in. Try to get this where you can see it, maybe. Might help. Just push it back in. Locks right in. Should move in and out easily. It does. We'll do this one next. Same procedure. Probably could have gone without doing these. These are in really good shape. Like I said, this is the first set of brakes that's changed since this car's been new. But we're in here. We might as well do it and not have a problem with it. So, just re-grease that. Put a little bit inside the boot too. Try to get it where you can see it, hopefully. Maybe. There we go. Force some down in there. Okay. Put the pin back in. There it goes. Moves good. In and out. Make sure it's not twisted up. Good. So now, as I mentioned before, we're going to come back in here behind where this new hardware is going to sit, and we're going to grease with the same grease. So keep moisture out of there. Keep corrosion from starting. To get this where you can see it. Yeah, right about there. Don't need a ton, but you do want to coat it. So. Same thing on the other side. I'm fighting with the camera today. That's so close I keep going out of it. Right in here. Get it right in there. Alright. Good to go. The new hardware here. Right there. Clip that right into place. Like that. So you can see the grease is down behind the hardware, and that's what we want. We want it down behind it. I just take a hammer, you can do whatever, and these tabs stick out. I just bend them over on the ends so it can't move really. Do the same thing here. Little tab. So that can slide in and out, it stays, that'll look real good. Can't really slide in and out, it stays put where we put it. Another set of hardware. Lay it in there, just clips right on. Just like that. I keep moving this out of the camera. I'm not doing too well at this today. Keep picking it up and getting it out of the frame. But I think you get the idea. Pretty basic stuff. Basic, but necessary. Do your maintenance. I showed in one of my videos I just did about a week ago when I pulled a valve cover off of a car, and for a valve cover gasket. It has over 160,000 miles on it, and I showed the inside of the actual valve train and the cylinder head, and it's really clean. No sludge, no garbage, no carbon buildup, nothing. And that's just regular maintenance. That's just, you got to do your maintenance. So there you can see the hardware is in place, and this one's ready to go back on the car. Okay, back over at the car. We've got a bracket here. We're going to bolt it back to the steering knuckle. Just screw them in. Get that set up first. I know you can't see this, but there's not much to see. It's just screwing a couple bolts in. Nothing exciting here. Nothing to see here. Move along. This side too. 17. We're going to tighten these by hand, but I'm going to run them in first with the guns, just quicker. But they need to be a little tighter than this stubby can do. Alright, so now we'll get our wrench and just torque them down. They have to be pretty tight, so tighten them up. This is where long wrenches like this one's long wrench helps a lot. Makes it a lot easier when you have to put a little more torque on something or break something loose even. Just you have more leverage. Okay, torque them to spec and get my pads. Pads here, as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm taking them apart. Indicator goes on the inside. It goes on the inside pad. So we'll just sit them in there, get them in place. I know you can't see this, but I'll show you the outside one when I put that on. It's basically the same. Get them in here, right? Here. So basically those tabs, you can see this tab right here, top and bottom. They just fit right on top of that hardware. Slide it into place, and they should slide in and out real easy, and these do. These slide right in there without any problem. That's what you want. These has this metal retainer clips. There's little holes on the edge of these pads. You stick the pin in there each side. They sit in there like that. I believe these are just anti-vibration. They just keep it from making noise. They do. Same thing here. Stick them in the holes on the edge of the pad, metal. They sit right in there. Now we're ready to hang the caliper back on there. Get it off of here. Make sure you don't twist your brake line. Don't twist this flexible line up. Make sure it's not twisted. Just slide that back on. When you do that, watch these the bolts for the slide pin with the rubber boots. Push them in. Push them towards the rotor when you do that so you don't pinch them. And just line it up. And we'll start our bolts again. Here. Get these started up. Always start them by hand. You don't want to cross thread them. And I will tighten these by hand because these don't get a lot of torque. They get, they just get snugged up. Basically, they're not very big bolts. They're pretty small. I don't want to do them with a gun. I take them off with a gun, but I don't want to put them back with a gun. They don't need to be that tight. 14 millimeter, I mentioned that in the beginning, but I'll just say it one more time. Tighten them up. Just snug them up. As you can see how easily this moves in and out. That's what you want. It should move. That's easy. Nice and sliding on that hardware. That's what you want. So that's it. We'll put the wheel back on. Before you drive it, pump your pedal. Pump the brake pedal, or you get a little scary moment because you're not going to have any brakes first time you step on the pad or step on the pedal. You have to reseat those new pads against that rotor. Make sure you do that. I'm going to clean this rotor one more time here. Wipe it off. Just to be sure. Let me get it back. Alright. That's it. This is a pretty basic job. I mean, this is something that really anybody can do. You don't have to have air tools to do this. It makes it faster, but you don't have to. You need a 21 millimeter to get the wheel off. You need a 14 and a 17 millimeter wrench to get this apart. Phillips head screwdriver, a bigger Phillips head screwdriver, a hammer, and some brake grease. And brake clean, of course, 1001 uses. But that's about it. Pretty basic tools, and you can do this. It's just not a simple job, but something, even if you don't do it, you do your maintenance. I mean, the car if you keep cars, and I've said this before, I keep cars for a long time. I don't get new cars all the time. I don't have any new cars. So I keep my cars for a long time. You need to maintain them. If you maintain them and take care of them, and this is just maintenance, they'll last a long time, and you'll have a lot less grief. It's really most of the time, you know, when you're having problems, it's lack of maintenance. You know, with mechanical things. You know, electronic things are different. Sometimes you know, things go bad, sensors go bad, things like that. But mechanical, if you maintain, you know, your brakes and you change your oil and you watch your suspension and replace those mechanical parts when they need to be replaced and take care of them, the car just gives you a lot less grief. This wheel did have a wheel lock on it. I didn't show taking that off, but took that off before I took the other lug nuts off. And always start these by hand. If you have air tools, don't start them on air tools, start them by hand. Otherwise you're going to cross thread. You'll cross thread them and then you will not be happy. Especially if you have to pull the hub to replace a stud, which in a lot of cars you do. Can't get at them. They're snugged up. I'll put this down on the ground and torque them. I do torque these. I do torque lug nuts. If you have a torque stick, you can use a torque stick. I do not have a torque stick, so I do these with a torque wrench. And I think it's well worthwhile doing that. Get them all the same, what they should be, and a lot less problems. I'll put this right back down on the ground and torque them. My wheel lock first, just because I feel like doing the wheel lock first. No other reason. All right, that's it. Done. As I said before, remember to pump the brake up before you try to drive this. Well, that's it. Real easy job, just maintenance. So it's not even really a repair, it's just maintenance, car maintenance. Do your maintenance. I don't know how else to say it. Just do your maintenance. Change your oil when it's supposed to be changed, change transmission fluid. That's a big one I see all the time, people. Because it's, you know, a lot of cars are 100,000 miles before you change your transmission fluid. Some, you know, it's much greater interval than an oil change. And people don't think about it and they don't do it, and it causes problems. I see a lot of cars with transmission problems, and most of those problems are caused by fluid that hasn't been changed and has been run 40 or 50,000 over what it's supposed to be, you know, when it was supposed to be changed. And that fluid has life and it breaks down. It has additives. You know, it will break down over time, and if you don't change it, you're going to have problems. And those problems, in the case of a transmission, can be, you know, pretty expensive problems. And most of those can be avoided, and a lot of the problems with cars just can be avoided by maintenance. So do your maintenance. I hope it helps you out if you need to do this. If you like the video, subscribe below. Thanks for watching.